Hey, it's Soul with a question today. Why haven't we had a new mount collection sort of achievement since Battle for Azeroth? Now, for some of you, this question isn't very important at all. I myself, I'm not a huge mount collector either. I just happen to have the 350 mount achievement thing through no big effort other than, I've been playing the game for a long time. But this is a good question. It is good feedback. Players want an update to an achievement that has had no update in what's going to be about 2 years now. This reads to me like a pretty perfectly actionable concern. And I ran into this question over the weekend on social media, and actually I've run into this question time and time again, especially these days since the Shadowlands expansion introduced no such update to this achievement, as said. So I want to share my thoughts on this question because answering it goes a little bit deeper into how World of Warcraft's design direction has been steadily changing, and I mostly mean that in a good way. So this video is just going to be for fun and a little bit of feedback. Maybe we can start up some discussion or just get you thinking about game design without getting too worked up. But I do hope to answer this question in some way, shape, or form. So if you're sort of like me and you enjoy these kinds of videos, hey, please hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and let's start with a brief history of this whole mount meta thing. Mount achievements are about as old as achievements themselves. It first started as a whopping 100 or so mounts at the start of Cataclysm. And then during Mists of Pandaria, that number went up to 200. And then in Warlords, it went up again to 300. In Legion, though, the mount achievement took a break, and some folks were starting trouble. They were kicking up dust throughout that expansion and wondering, hey, when's that thing going to be updated? And an update did come, at least at the start of Battle for Azeroth, which took it up to 400 mounts to get this snazzy green bird creature. But like in Legion, the achievement took a break for Shadowlands. But why? To get closer to the answer, we'll have a listen to game director Ian Hazzikostas in an interview with Panda TV, who brought this question up in 2020, a few months before the Shadowlands launch.
Is there any indication of making more goal-orientated achievements, right? So currently the 400 mount will be quite easy to obtain for some people moving into Shadowlands. Are you guys thinking of making more achievements that work towards a goal, as in the over 9,000, the 400 toys, and stuff like that? So that's more a very small percentage of the player base, but for these people that have these massive goal achievements, is there any plans on making more for them?
Yeah, I think we definitely plan on continuing to inch up those, collect X different mounts, Y different pets type of achievements. I think we want to make sure that we're not making achievements that are literally so extreme that they're just for literally a few dozen people in the world who are the hyper collectors. So we're looking at the range of available options. We want to make sure that these are reasonably attainable without having to have, currently unavailable old mounts that have been removed from the game but still count towards those collections, which are some of the things that collectors use to get a leg up in these races. Really, because we know that every time we put an achievement in the game, part of the completionist mindset is, for some people, we are creating something they effectively have to have. The second we set the bar, they have to work towards it. And so we want to make sure that that process isn't going to be overly frustrating. We've definitely heard a range of feedback on everything from old school Timeless Isle achievements, more recently some of the Islands Expeditions collector achievements, where they just feel overly punitive. And so we always want to make sure that we're striking the right balance there, but we will continue to keep adding them.
All right, let's try to unpack that. And I'm going to kind of jump back and forth between perspectives, and this might help you understand where I'm coming from here. So according to Ian, the team wants to be pretty careful with adding another 100 mounts or so because, well, for some players, notably the veteran hardcore collectors that Panda TV was mentioning, adding another 100 mounts every expansion can feel a little punitive. Hardcore collectors might not necessarily be also hardcore raiders or PvPers, and so they might have a harder time than others completing these kinds of achievements. Now, not to say that there's tons and tons of mounts behind these accomplishments, but my point is that there are advantages that some players have over others due to skill and gameplay preference, even though this particular achievement is just based on collection. Personally, I find it odd that the prize for collecting so many mounts is just like another mount. I think a title or a cool hat would be a better reward, but that's just me. Anyway, one point of view that is not captured by Ian in his statements, which I think is really they should have, he should have covered the newer player perspective, which sounds baffling at first, right? Because this sort of achievement is kind of made for the veteran, the kind of player who has been here for years with tons of in-game experience and know-how. But let's step into the shoes of like a brand new player for like just a moment. Let's pretend it's their first couple of days on Azeroth and they're seeing the wonders of people like you and me who are suspended on these flying mounts, and they're wearing this amazing set of gear that they have no idea like what they are, where they came from, what class is that, what's a shaman again, that sort of thing. New players, they see things, but they don't know anything. But let's say that's, this new player, they came across a mount like this, I'll throw it up on screen, and they're like, dude, whoa, I want that. So they whisper that person on the mount, and you're like, oh, wow, that's a sick mount. Where'd you get it? And then the person responds, oh, I collected like 350 or so mounts and I got it as an achievement. And that new player is like, oh, okay, 300 mounts. I'm like level 38 and I have like one. Damn. So this particular collection achievement is a different beast from other achievements in WoW. Like, let's say a new player wanted this other mount. I'll throw it up on screen. Like, they wanted this mount from completing Heroic Sepulchre of the First Ones. It's not the easiest thing for a brand new player to get. After all, they got to get to max level, they need to learn their class, they need to at least understand well enough the Shadowlands endgame features, they got to gear up, and then, they got to find a team that's willing to take them. And then, of course, they need to beat the jailer on Heroic too, so it's a lot of hard work. But with the will and the tenacity, they can get it done in, I don't know, maybe a few months, if I'm being optimistic here. But how about a more recent addition, like the Back from the Beyond meta, which awards a mount and a title, but the road to that involves almost every activity in Shadowlands. But at the very least, it's an experience that's contained within the Shadowlands expansion. However, if a player wants this frozen infernal doohickey thing, they gotta get mounts. And mounts, and mounts and mounts and mounts. They gotta travel all over the game world. They're gonna be getting more and more of them until finally, after spending who knows how much gold, farming up old content, crafting stuff, collecting stuff here and there, they finally get that 350th mount, and then number 351 appears in their inventory or their mailbox. And that's like a happy ending. That's the happy ending for a player who is new to the game. They were that person was motivated enough to overcome a challenge as lofty as collecting 350 mounts, let alone 400, which is the max so far. This particular meta's foundations are designed in such a way that as it gets bigger and bigger, as expansions roll by, it becomes more and more difficult for newer players to get that thing that they want. Now, I get that is very much an opinion. It's very subjective. Like, there are mounts almost everywhere you look, right? This achievement isn't exactly hard. It just takes some time. It's a long-term achievement, but that's not entirely the point either. The point is that in a way, the mount achievement, it gives us a similar energy to like the 120 levels that you got to earn back in Battle for Azeroth days. Like, to that, even veterans gave some empathetic feedback in favor of the level squish, that it feels intimidating for a new player, even if for folks like us, it was like a few hours of questing in legacy content and then freehold farming. And we may not see the concern as very important to us because we are not new to the game, but my guess, my total guess here is that this achievement has become too bloated for its own good. If some players got their way, Dragonflight would introduce this 600 mount achievement by this point, which is probably perfectly attainable. But it's an achievement that I think uniquely alienates newer players who will encounter notable barriers like gold and long rep grinds. And that's not the worst thing, okay? I want to make that clear. I'm not trying to say that continuing this route is flat out immorally wrong. However, even though Shadowlands has introduced a ton of mounts here, the WoW team had this particular achievement take another break. I don't think that they think this approach is wrong either, but maybe achievement design of this sort, it's turning out to be more frustrating than fulfilling, and maybe it could be better. So let's talk about the approaches that the WoW team can take. I know I usually, as usual, I took my time setting this up, so I appreciate your patience. So I find collection fun. Like, y'all know that I'm a big sucker for transmog, and I've been pretty hard at work over the past few months scouring the planet for all the appearances of every sort. One of the really fun parts of completing like a dungeon or a raid set from a particular place is that you can get a little achievement for having completed said appearance. There's no extra mog or anything special like that, just a little bit of acknowledgement and some achievement points, and I appreciate that. And that's kind of a hint to get an achievement based on collecting a set of stuff like transmogs or perhaps mounts in a given point of WoW's history. Here's a bit of a sidetrack, but it's kind of closely related too, but let's take a glance at how professions have changed in Shadowlands. Now, it used to run pretty parallel to how mount collecting is right now, where back in the old profession days in Legion, if you wanted to be a Legion engineer or whatever, you needed to have leveled all the previous expansions professions just to get to Legion, potentially wasting tons and tons of gold and resources just to get you to the point where you can start progressing where you want to. Now, it's not the same as mounts, right? Because you can keep the mounts, but it's the same vibe that I'm trying to capture here. Anyway, to learn a particular era's profession these days, you could just go to that expansion and you can immediately start training up that particular expansion's professions, which cuts down considerable bloats. So based on those, here's what I think the WoW team should consider. First is to not really mess around with the current 400 collection achievement for mounts. I mean, I think that's fine. But I don't think it needs to be expanded or deprecated or turned into a feat of strength. Instead, going forward, how about we consider each expansion to have its own separate collection achievement? So, for example, according to Wowhead, Shadowlands introduced over 150 mounts across the entire expansion. Maybe in this case, there can be an achievement that's either added at the beginning or the end of an expansion to obtain 100 or 125 of these mounts, which sounds like a lot, whatever, but it shouldn't be so much that one would need to consider getting the shop mounts and gladiator and KSM and so on as collection options. In fact, I'm not even sure if the shop mounts count towards those goals anyway. On top of that, though, I think the team should go back and create individual mount achievements from each expansion that has long passed that, veteran players will just be kind of grandfathered into. They don't have to be super special, they could just be recolors, but it's all to kind of reintroduce this collection achievement into something that's a little bit more friendly to newer players and also has them checking out different expansion areas too. Let's think about this a little bit more though. Maybe the new version of this achievement doesn't have to be about raw numbers like collecting X number of mounts, but maybe something a little bit more thematic. Now, as you know, there are a lot of different colored tints of mounts that otherwise share the same model. Similar to rare tracking achievements, how about an achievement that asks us to get one version of each kind of the mount throughout an expansion? Or just a set, a collection of mounts just for the heck of it. I know this talk has been about achievements, but it's also about trying to understand WoW's design direction a little bit better. This is a cheap platitude, okay, that's also forgotten often, but it's important to create with both the veteran player and the new player in mind. The level squish was not perfect. The chromie time, that isn't perfect, and neither is the current mount achievement. We're only speculating at this point that the WoW team may be taking a different approach with long-term collections like mounts, but I thought that this would be kind of a fun and relatively safe and not too controversial topic to debate over. So I invite you over to the comments to share your own thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this talk. Please hit the like button and subscribe for more discussions and guides and more, and I'll catch you later. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.